I wanted to tell you something many of you know. Cluster number 3 is about civil society for society, civil security for society. And I'm going to give a few hints about what we have for called 2022, and we're preparing the work program for 2023-2024, not only in cluster 3, but also in other clusters of the other colleagues from CDTI. Cluster 3 is a part of one of the 6 priorities of the von der Leyen Commission. It's the 4th priority, which you can see in the agenda of the present Commission, which is the protection of the European lifestyle. So the part concerning research in security issues is framed in this context. We also have the European Security Union Strategy, which is a series of guidelines, of lines, of goals that have to be reached, which have to reach between 2020 and 2025. And there is a series of measures and tools, among which we have Cluster 3 of the Framework Program, in order to develop a series of services, of technologies that allow us to guarantee the security of our citizens, of our physical and digital environment. So we are talking also of cybersecurity. As I was telling you, the area of cybersecurity, and as you have seen in the last year, due to the emergency situation of COVID-19, we have all had to move to digital. We have been able to move about 10 years, improving the activities we are carrying out, from work activities to other types of activities. That has been moved online, and everything is done remotely. This has been not only a technological challenge, but also a security challenge. And it has allowed us also to move forward in legislation, laws related to the different aspects that have to be taken into account in the virtual context, but also in activities of cybersecurity. And we have had to accelerate the laws concerning cybersecurity. Besides that, we're not only talking about laws, but also of action packages from the European Union, but also in terms of international cooperation, so that there's coordination. Because one of the main aspects of cyberspace is that there are no borders. So, since last year, a series of actions such as Blueprint have been started. This summer, the Joint Cyber Unit has been started by the European Commission. This includes not only several general directions of the Commission, but also of the Council and of other European agencies and actors, and also the observation of several international organizations that are experts or that have a mandate in terms of cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is not only the internet, but also related technologies such as 5G. And in that sense, we are trying to find a consensus and start from this year the 5G toolbox and a series of actions that allows us not only the cyberspace, but also the technologies that take place in the virtual space to be secure. This European strategy on cybersecurity is not only about operational actions, but also actions related to research and development. In terms of cybersecurity, we want to go one step ahead. This European Union strategy in terms of cybersecurity gives us a framework to identify the priorities in research in Horizon Europe, the framework program, but also in Connecting Europe facility and in the Digital Europe program, which are the programs that are more directly related with the area of cybersecurity in the different states or TRLs, or closeness to the market, or the final user of the products that may be developed. Cluster 3 is a part of Pillar 2 of the framework program of Horizon Europe, and basically the calls of this program of Cluster 3 are at your disposal since the 30th of June. Program for 2021 and 2022. Program 2021, the calls for cybersecurity. The deadline was last week on Thursday, and the rest of the cybersecurity program the deadline will be the 23rd of November. I'm going to explain the main pillars of the program. The different chapters are called destinations. It's a continuation of what we had in Horizon 2020. Therefore, we continue having a disaster risk reduction destination. We have a destination on border security, destination on infrastructures, and another one about fight against crime and terrorism, which in 2021 and 2022 have been separated chapters, but in 23-24 will be together in one single chapter, one single destination, and we have a common budget. And finally, we've got a destination dealing with cybersecurity. It's true that the cybersecurity program is focused on developing technologies, products and services for some very specific final users in order to reinforce the capacities that allow them to work on a daily basis and give better services to the citizens. Therefore, most projects are responding to the needs of the final users. We're talking about civil protection, emergency services in border security. We're talking about customs of the civil Guardia Civil in Spain. In critical infrastructures, we're talking about the operators of critical infrastructures. But also, smart cities are considered a critical infrastructure. Fighting crime and terrorism, obviously, we're talking about police forces and the different departments or sections that are related with these police forces, the law enforcement bodies. And in cybersecurity, it's much wider because here the final users are everybody from the MSEs to the big companies, but also individual users. Anybody with a computer at home is interested in cybersecurity. So these four parts of the program have governmental final uses at different levels, at a national, regional, and local level, besides the operators of the critical infrastructures. In the area of cybersecurity, the audience is wider. It's the whole of society. So it's very important to understand that the Cluster 3 projects are focused on the needs of these final users. So therefore, it's essential to introduce them in the consortiums as an active part of these consortiums, not only as passive receivers. And most projects, even if we're talking about projects that are not close to the market, they will include demonstrations in real-time scenarios. So the synergies with the market or with the final user are very, very important, or we need a vision in order to develop something that is operational. We're going to first with the first destination, which is fighting crime and terrorism, which is aimed at development tools that allow these law enforcement agencies to prevent, research, and mitigate criminal activities both in the physical and in the cyber world. In these last calls for 2021-2022, we are dealing a lot with the public spaces in the cities. I just wanted to remind you the topics that have already been published for 2021-2022. 2021, the deadline is the 23rd of December. Many of you are preparing the proposals in your consortiums. You must understand that as this destination is aimed at some specific final users, it is a precondition to include a few of the final users in the consortium. Otherwise, it is not eligible. This is what we get in these 12 topics. I would like to point out for the first time fighting against the traffic of cultural goods, of works of art, which often also finance criminal action internationally. I would also like to point out the environmental crime that has been introduced this year, and also the prevention of child sexual exploitation or abuse of people who are dependent, and also something that is very important and very current, the theft of identity, theft and the fake news. In 2022, the call of next year will open at the end of June. The deadline will be the same as for 2021, the 23rd of November. Next year's topics are 7, but only one project per topic will be approved, so the proposals must be really excellent. So some of the novelties that we have implemented are fighting against corruption, and we're also fighting against extremism and radicalization and topics related to human trafficking. Control anti-drugs. The final users are the border control agents. The goal is to avoid piracy, criminal arts, and traffic that cross the borders, not only in the member states, but also the external borders of the European Union. So we're focusing this on the control and monetization not only of passengers, but also of goods that come in and out of the European Union. We have 5 topics for the call that closes on the 23rd of November 2021. So what I wanted to point out here mostly is one of the most interesting topics, which is the detection of threats in parcels and post packages. We have 5 topics here. We have 2 open topics, like what we had in the 2020 small and middle enterprises, so that this control, these are projects for the border control agents. So we're giving awards to small and middle-sized enterprises that are innovative. It is very important to include the final user, this is customs, the border police in the consortium, in order to be eligible. As for destination B, the part of protection of critical infrastructures, the final users would be the operators of critical infrastructures. We're looking not only at the individual sectors, but also the interconnections between the sectors. If there's a disruption of electricity, how this affects the transportation, the internet, how it could affect the energy supply, the grid. We're talking here both of physical and cyber attacks. Present call closes on the 23rd of November too, and for next year there are some new topics that we've seen in other clusters, such as how the nature-based solutions can be implemented locally in order for them to protect these cities, these areas, where very often there's a big part of the population and may be exposed to weather phenomena, geological phenomena, or natural catastrophes. or catastrophes that have been generated by the human action. This is something that has been incorporated. It's quite interesting. This concept has been taken from other clusters, like the clusters 6 and 5, in the part where they deal with the environment. Obviously, in the present call, we had to include the tools that allow for this resilience, this continuity of the services of the public infrastructures in the case of pandemics. Now we're going to talk about the part of cybersecurity. This affects us all, individual users and companies. It is important to develop tools that allow us to have strategic autonomy in Europe in relation to other suppliers from outside the European Union. And I would like to point out that from 2024, this part of the program is going to be financed, and the financing lines are going to be set by the European Competencies Center, which will be in charge of the program Cyber and Digital Europe. The cyber part of Cluster 3 is open to any type of partners. There's no eligibility conditions. Thursday last week, the call of 2021 finished, and now we are assessing the project. At the end of the month of January, the beginning of February, the applicants could be receiving the results. From call 2022, there's some eligibility conditions in quantum technologies, because we consider these technologies are technologies that allow us to have this strategic autonomy of the European Union. So in this case, the topics related to quantum are only accessible to consortiums that include entities that have their headquarters in a member state or a state associated to the European Union in the framework program. Maybe for these topics, the organizations, mostly the small and middle-sized enterprises, will be requested a questionnaire where they explain their ownership in order to make sure if their ownership is under the control of European companies. The destination about management and resilience, the operational destination that has to do with the management of crises, disasters, mitigation and remediations, the final uses apart from the emergency bodies and also civil protection. The call, the deadline is the 23rd of November, and for next year, I would like to point out the vulnerable areas in the topics included for 2022 and 2021. There's some eligibility conditions, and that means that it is compulsory to include actively in the consortium with design actions. We need to include the final users in the consortium. And one of the important things is that we need to involve the citizens in the response and in the resilience in situations of crisis that have been produced by natural disasters or by catastrophes that have been generated by accidents caused by humans or by premeditated express actions. There is a part that has to do with research and innovation, which implies putting in the hands of the providers of security solutions and also of the final users tools that allow us to take advantage of the successful solutions and also communicating the needs of research and development. In the 2021 call, we have services for civil protection, and in the 2022 call, We're also looking for pre-commercial procurement for some of the final users of the security program. So if you're interested in contacting with these final users, you have the community of users at the European level, and at the national level, you have the community of users in Spain, which is co-organized between CDTI and the Ministry of Internal Affairs, Home Affairs. We are in the FEINDEF Fair 21 in IFEMA in Madrid. We have 2 sessions. One of them is devoted to Cluster 3, and the other one is devoted to security aspects and to the information that we're dealing with research and development products. And I wanted to finish by saying that we are preparing the work program for 2023-2024, and we are now carrying out consultations and fora with the final users, obviously, but also with participants in the program in order to understand and try to collect these potential topics for the call 2023-2024. And which is the calendar? The idea is that during the month of December and until June next year, together with the Commission and the program committees, we start preparing these work program drafts. They could finish that assessment at the end of June, so that in the months of July and September next year, that document is taken to an internal department in the Commission, and in October, November next year, we could make the last consultations regarding the work program, and this could be launched in December 2022. The calls for 2023 and 2024 could be launched then. Who is at your disposal? If you want to participate in the calls for Cluster 3, we have Maite Bollero, who is the representative in the program committee, myself, I'm the national contact point for Cluster 3, and our colleague Ainara Ripa. You have a contact if you want to get in contact with us at any time. Thank you very much for allowing us to participate in today's sessions.